I'm here with Ross Nimmo, Head of Planning and Development from Glasgow Airports. Thank you for joining me. I think just let's get straight into it. So my first question is, in your own words, what do you think the future of aviation post-COVID-19 is?
It's a difficult question because I think there's been so much change that's been driven by COVID-19 and our response to it that we could never have scenario planned what happened. But a couple of things are maybe striking me, maybe trends that existed beforehand that might be accelerating now. So this idea of personal control, we started to see that in our passenger journeys and the use of smart devices and, pre-booking things and different things. So I see that accelerating. So there's a degree of personal control and personalisation of the passenger journey. And that's quite interesting for us. I think it's become really challenging for airport operators and lots of other sectors as well to say, well, what does our customer look like tomorrow? Before, again, we had decades of data that gave us, broadly speaking, an idea of where different market segments might be going, where different passenger segments might be going, and then overall demand as well. Now, your guess is as good as mine.
Absolutely. And I guess following on from that, what challenges are airports today facing? Not even post-COVID, but just in general. What would you say?
I would say our general challenges or opportunities, if you wanted to think about it from that perspective. Again, it's the passenger and culture. I think we still have a culture of globalisation where people want to go to different places and meet different people and experience different things, and largely it's flying that enables that to happen. I think we are seeing the fly shaft sort of phenomenon that the guy spoke about earlier on, flight shaming, where linked to the climate change agenda, that there's that kind of theme sometimes. My daughter gives me quite a hard time sometimes for working for an airport, which I've got lots of good answers as to why that's not a bad thing. So I think our response to the climate change crisis as well is one of our biggest challenges, in particular, as I touched on the stage. It comes at a time where financially and structurally our capacity as airports, as an entire sector, has been really tested during the pandemic, but we need to respond. It's not like we can say, poor us, we're not going to do anything, we're kind of incapacitated. Actually, we need to find a way of responding to it, because I think people want to travel, and there's this cheesy phrase that carbon's the problem, not air travel. But it's true. I don't think you speak to any sort of rational person, policy makers, they don't want to stop travel, they want to stop carbon emissions. So I think that's our biggest challenge, is how that links into the whole passenger demand and sort of what does culture think of airports and aviation? We're going to change again. It started out really exclusive mode of travel back in the day. Then it kind of opened up a bit, and then you had sort of mass travel through the low-cost carriers, and now we're in this ecological era where the industry has to kind of reinvent itself again to be compatible with those new desires.
Absolutely. And I guess maybe another challenge that posed because of COVID is the job opportunities, social responsibilities of airports. So in terms of Glasgow Airport, why is economic growth so important, and why is the social responsibility and of surrounding communities of the airport so important?
Again, another complex question from a number of different perspectives. I mean, Glasgow's geographic position, like much of the north of England, like all of Scotland, if we want to trade, if we want to export, if we want to encourage inbound visitors, they have to fly. Flying is the only feasible mode of transport, so it's a fundamental enabler of all of that economic activity and the jobs that supports. at a more local level, airports are particularly the larger airports, the regional airports, are real clusters of economic activity. I mean, our kind of core operation at the airport, we have sort of 5,000-6,000 staff at the airport, so across our operations, and then all of the partners and the airlines and the maintenance and the cargo companies and everything else. But within a couple of miles of Glasgow Airport, I think the figure's about 40,000. And most of that is companies that are either aviation related, or they're connectivity dependent, or they like the sort of persona of being located next to the airport. There's this kind of weird intangible thing. And at the same time, we have some of the most deprived neighbourhoods in that same geography. And it's a real motivating factor for us that, yes, we're creating lots of jobs and economic activity, but we need to make sure that we're providing people with the access to those economic opportunities. And I think there's always improvements that we can make to doing that. There's a selfish perspective, access to the labour market. We need workers. You know, these people can fill those roles, but I think there is also a kind of moral or a wider societal kind of perspective that we definitely see our airports playing a role in that. And just a quick point as well, airports can change and grow and create opportunities in a much quicker and more dynamic way than any industry that I've been involved in can. So we did 2 economic impact studies, sort of 7 years apart, 2011, 2018, and really great data. And we grew our employment, our direct employment, by 1,000 jobs. Now, I think you would really struggle to point to another physical location covering the same kind of geography that generated that number of jobs over the same period. So yeah, we've been through a tough time in the past couple of years, but I'm hopeful, I'm really confident that we can get back to kind of having that sort of positive impact again.
Yeah, which is definitely, it's shown today as well that the bounce back, it's there, people are ready for it,
yeah.
The industry is ready for it, and the evidence is there that it's going to happen and is already happening, so that's really good to see.
Yeah.
So a key theme really is redevelopment of airports, or development, and it's suggested that if airports want to make a small impact on their environment, then they should focus instead on getting more out of existing infrastructure through digital transformation and programs, to the whole bytes not bricks. What is your opinion on this? Should airports be expanding at all?
So I think airports need to grow and adapt and change, and that can be in response to new technologies, that can be in response to growth and demand, it can be in response, we've spoken a lot today about energy and the energy needs in and around airports, and for us that's going to require physical development in order to facilitate that. So if you kind of take a sort of binary airports can't develop position, and if that's perhaps informed by the climate change narrative, then to me that would be counterproductive. Our airport dates from 1966. It's relatively old infrastructure, so we have quite a lot of work to adapt that and to retrofit that in order to meet sort of today's environmental performances. So I do think we need to support airports to grow and adapt in the right way. I'd be very surprised if there is any airport, certainly in the UK, that hasn't already adopted the approach that you've discussed. So, none of us particularly want to spend £3-5 million on aircraft parking stands. If we can be making better use of the infrastructure that we've already invested in, and of course increasingly that's a financial investment, but it's also that sunk carbon cost as well. That we're looking at it from that perspective. If we can use data and we can use technology and we can be smarter in how we use that to negate or to delay, negate's probably the wrong word, to delay when you need to pour that concrete to use that analogy, then that works for me, it works for my shareholders, and I think it would work for society in general as well. So it already happens, more scope for it, and it's changed because it's technology and these companies are springing up right, left and centre. Only last week I spoke to a company based out of the continent discussing aircraft turnaround, and they use these sort of AI systems and machine learning, and they're maybe chopping, let's say, 10-15 minutes off a turnaround. But if you're handling several hundred aircraft a day, you know, that can be the difference between having to build a stand year X or having to build a stand year X plus 5, and that's a material benefit. So yeah, I think it's a really exciting area actually.
It really is, and maybe that'll bring me on to my last couple of questions. So, and I'll end on a positive note as well. So what is something that aviation, or let's say airports, in the general environment continue to do or have done in the past that you feel that will not add or will not benefit the growth of the general aviation environment in the future?
Things like airspace change.
Absolutely.
Doing a lot of work with NATS and CA and the government on future airspace, and you know, you're kind of yielding track mileage benefits, fuel burn, CO2 emissions, noise benefits. You know, there have been some spicy conversations with residents when you go through the public consultation there, but from a broad perspective that feels like the right thing to be doing, a really beneficial thing to be doing. Our expansion plans, our master plans, I mean, some of the consultation exercises we go through in producing those as well are kind of industry leading in terms of how we seek, Alistair was just talking about it there, you know, we seek to engage parts of society and the community that, you know, I'm a town planner by background, you know, you produce a local plan, you're lucky if a handful of people will respond to it. They tend to be old, they tend to be male, they tend to be retired, you know, you're kind of getting a one-dimensional perspective back. So I think again a lot of the work that the industry is doing in engaging and reaching out is really positive. I think we need to get better at, particularly in the climate change conversation, that needs to move on. You know, it's at the moment it just seems to me sometimes like it's self-defeating, that a lot of the media and political commentators immediately go to, sorry not you, I don't mean that, the bad media, but it's aviation is bad, oh such and such took a flight, you know, they shouldn't have taken that flight. You know, I mean, in Scotland certainly, from 1990 to 2018, 17 I think it was, number of passengers handled grew by, I think it was 169%. The amount of CO2 emitted grew by 50%. Now, obviously we don't want it to grow, we want it to shrink. The point I'm making there was that was kind of pre this debate really taking hold in the way that it has, so arguably less focus from manufacturers, airports, governments and others into measures to reduce carbon. But I think that's really significant progress. I think it's meaningful, and it's much more progress than lots of other industries have made, but they haven't caught the limelight as much as aviation has. And I think we need to get out ahead of that, and we need to be clear about the progress that has been made. I think we need to be clear about the purpose of flying. Yeah, sometimes it is for fun, and that's fine, that's okay, people deserve that. But lots of times it's for really important things. It's visiting loved ones, friends, family. It's for exporting, driving, you know, economic success, opening up new opportunities to people as well. You know, why should the next generation not be afforded the opportunity to explore the world in the way that we have?